Hi, my name's Lauren Farraker, and I am the host of the Woof Life podcast. If it's your first time here, we are a podcast that is dedicated to everything dog. Let's see what we have in store this week. I'm so excited today that we have Andrew Muse. He runs Andrew Muse Productions, and you've probably seen his photos on Instagram. He has an absolutely incredible Instagram. It's Andrew 2_Muse. His dog Kicker Dog Muse, and they run an incredible YouTube show called The Tiny Home Adventure. You might have seen them on the Dodo, and we're so excited to talk to him about their incredible adventure lifestyle and hear all about Kicker, who I want to be best friends with. Like, seriously. He's so cute. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So tell me about like your background. So we've seen you travel around, absolutely incredible, but did you grow up doing this and what you're doing now is just like you're recording it, or yeah, and have you always had golden retrievers, or what are the dogs of your past?
Sure. So my background is I grew up in Rowley, Massachusetts, which is like the northeast corner of Mass. I actually kind of moved around quite a bit as a kid.
Okay.
Raised by a single mom, and sort of my place of, I wouldn't say solitude, but where I could kind of catch a break was just being in the woods, making forts, climbing rocks, climbing trees. I always really liked to just like jump off of things and build forts and just be a stupid boy. So um, I didn't have much of a background as far as adventure sports or really camping, other than with like, friends kind of locally.
Got it.
And we moved around quite a bit, and I was raised in kind of an unstable situation. So we would get dogs, and unfortunately, because we would move and our situation was pretty unstable, we would only have them for like 2 years at a time,
Oh,
um,
wow.
which is super, super unfortunate. And I hated it, and it drove me nuts. And we'd have, Bijans, and we've had a couple Bijans and some miniature poodles, so some smaller, fluffy dogs.
Yeah.
But I always really, really like envisioned, you know, having a life with a dog that I could take on, camping and adventuring, and that, wouldn't have to be on leash and would just kind of hang out by my side, and, would never be, yeah, I don't know, just like this dream adventure dog
Got
sort
it.
of idealistic lifestyle. And right after high school, I moved west to Park City, Utah, having never been farther west than New York. And
Wow.
to sort of pursue a career in the outdoor ski industry. My dream was to either be a professional snowboarder or a heli ski guide. Um, and then that sort of progressed into ski patrolling while I lived there. And I always really wanted a dog since I was like 12 years old, like my
Okay.
own dog.
Yeah.
But I never had the life to give a dog the best life possible,
Yep.
up until I was, about, I think I was 22 when I got Booter. And that sort of, I was had a stable home, stable income. I had a job where I could take him to work with me.
Yeah.
So that's when I sort of decided to get Booter.
Got it. That's pretty incredible. It's pretty funny because your story mirrors that of my dad. He was from Jersey
Hmm.
and moved to Colorado, never had skied, never had done anything, and then did ski patrol in like Copper and
Awesome.
yeah. So it's really funny when you were talking, I was like, oh my God, this is the non-dog version of my dad. This is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love it. It's been a total roller coaster as far as moving away from all of my friends and family, and being on my own. Hasn't been a fairy tale story, but it's led me to an incredible life, and I've made some incredible friends and had some awesome experiences and learned a ton. And yeah, Park City, Utah is definitely my home base and probably will be for quite a while.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. I haven't been myself, but I hear incredible things. I
Yeah, it's
definitely
great.
hear incredible things. So, what was the catalyst that kind of created the tiny home adventure?
Sure. So I had been living in Park City for 6 or 7 years at this point. Booter was 5, and we had just created this incredible connection. Like when Booter came into my life, I had this envisioned this perfect dog,
Yeah.
and Booter far surpassed my imagination. Just the connection we had, his interaction with people and other dogs, and his ability um, to just be with me on all kinds of different crazy things, I thought was really special. Like I could look at him and tell him to like sit without making a gesture, right? And he would know
Wow.
what I was thinking, and it was like vice versa. Like I knew exactly what he needed from me, and he knew exactly what I wanted from him.
Yeah.
And over the last 10 years of my life, I'd sort of built this super diverse skill set as far as outdoor sports go. So climbing, biking, um, kiteboarding, paragliding, ice climbing, skateboarding, just kind of the list goes on and on. Basically anything outside and adrenaline driven, I
Yeah.
had built a fairly high level skill set around. And I had also started to create content. I had bought a GoPro just to kind of
Oh,
document
got it.
things and share with friends. And that had sort of created opportunities to work with brands. As my content saw more and more views, I'd have brands reach out, or I'd reach out to brands. And at that point, I was, getting snowboards and sunglasses and it just like stuff, just gear,
Got it.
which actually was awesome because gear is so expensive. So it kind of allowed me to like diversify my skill set and all the activities I was doing, as well as just kind of get some more eyes on what I was doing, and sort of just sort like little bit of breadcrumbs along the way. Lots and lots of hard work, but
Yeah.
um, I kind of had this idea of I had working in the ski industry, and in Park City we have these shoulder seasons. So the spring we call the mud season because all the snow is melting.
Yep.
There's not a lot to do. You can't go biking, you can't go skiing, you can go hiking, but it's kind of gross. So um, the industry sort of slows down. So I would try and take a month or two off to travel, and it started. I was living out of a Volkswagen Golf, and then I bought an Astro van and would spend 3 weeks climbing and would bring Booter along. And
Wow.
then turned 25, and I sort of reached a quarter life crisis. I felt like I wasn't ski patrolling any longer, but I was waiting tables at one of the nicest restaurants in Park City. So I was making pretty good money. I was skiing every day. Like I was living the ski bum's dream. I had money. I had a nice house. I wasn't sharing a room, and I just felt stagnant though. I was like, well, I'm
Got it.
not really I'm not going to make, my life isn't progressing. I've kind of reached this point, which is great, but I want to like do what I love to an even a higher degree. So, I bought the first vehicle I had, taken a loan out on. I bought this Nissan Titan, um, which isn't a super, super nice truck. It was just like a nicer than I had previously paid cash, like $1,500 for a vehicle.
Got it.
And and then I was like, man, I want to remodel a truck camper. And this was kind of before the whole tiny home van life movement kind of craze that's going on right now. So I
Got
was
it.
kind of barely ahead of that curve. And I found a 1976 truck camper for $500, and thought it was going to take me 2 weeks to. I wanted to fully remodel it because it was pretty dark and kind of weird in there, and thought it was going to be a couple $100, 2 weeks tops. And it got into this project, and realized it was going to be, several months potentially, and, a couple $1,000s. But um, that was a really interesting kind of awakening for me, because I've always been a super hard worker, or a hard worker my entire life, but this was something totally different. I'd wake up in the morning at 6 on the dot without an alarm clock, be fired up for the day, make a piece of toast, and I would be just working on this rig for 16 plus hours. And if I had to be to work,
Wow.
I'd work to like barely to like jump in the shower real quick, go to work till, 11, 12, 1 in the morning, and then be up at 6 again and work on this project. So it was just really pushing for something that I was really super passionate about. I just had this vision of this dream lifestyle that I had been working super hard to save money. I had actually moved out of the bedroom I was living in and into the garage, and saving all of my pennies to basically go on this 6-month pilot series concept where
Oh, wow.
Booter and I would create these bi-weekly episodes. So release um, our travels of what we had been doing of over the last 2 weeks, um, every 2 weeks. And yeah, so we kind of just set off on this dream road trip, and it was absolutely incredible. We had so many wild experiences, met some crazy people, fell into things that I didn't even know existed. And yeah, it was really, really awesome right up until we finished filming the last episode.
Got it. Yeah.
So
Um, season one was so incredible and just visually stunning. I mean, you take very, very incredible photos. Like
thank you.
we gotta get that out of the way. You have to tell us about your equipment because I think people always want to know how you take that level of incredible photos, even though it's very clear you have very nice stuff.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but
So
yeah, I think you captured. Yeah, I would say that you captured a sense of, even though that's like I couldn't live and do that. It just you become so emotionally invested in the journey that you guys took. And I would say across all seasons.
thank you. Yeah, so season one, as far as camera equipment, I had, I think, two GoPro 4s probably. This was now a little over 4 years ago. And I had bought a 5D Mark II from a friend, which is like a
Yeah,
Canon full frame sensor. And honestly, when I got the 5D2, I was terrified of it. I had taken photography in high school, so had a general, an overall feel of how to kind of shoot. But yeah, having this big clunky expensive camera was at first super intimidating, and now it's kind of second nature, and I really know how to like manipulate it and create the effects that and the feel of the image that I'd like to create. And one of the most amazing things about photography and videography is that the progression is never ending.
yeah,
There's always new technology, but there's always something new to shoot and to learn, or to like, edit differently, or to shoot, new lenses or new cameras. It's wild. That's one of my favorite things about photography, is the never ending progression, and being able to capture things and see things with the human eye that maybe your brain wouldn't pick up, like, kicker shaking off and catching all of the like water exploding off of him. Like, those are some of my favorite shots. But um
yeah,
yeah, it's been a progression. I started just, you can learn anything on YouTube at this point, as far as I'm aware,
yep,
so just lots of hours of YouTube, lots of, other photographer friends that I picked up things from. But at the time, the gear I had is definitely not the nicest gear. Now I've, fully invested and fully committed into this content creator, athlete, ambassador lifestyle. I've invested into some nicer gear. So I have the 5D Mark IV for photos. I have a
got it.
GH5S for video, a couple GoPro Hero 7s, because I do work with GoPro now, and the Mavic DJI Pro 2 drone is sort of my
Wow.
base kit. So I've invested into the craft at this point because I do really pride myself in trying to create super high level, high production value content.
Yeah.
Um,
Your time
and
lapse photos are just amazeballs. I have no
thank
other
you.
word.
Yeah. That stuff's so fun to make. I'm a pretty go 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 kind of person, so to like set up somewhere beautiful and spend 5 hours like maintaining my camera is nice to kind of like slow down and then see the whole progression of the day. And that's another one of the things I love to see. It's like cameras allow you to see these things that the human eye can't really understand. The separation of water, sealing that moment of chaos in a moment, um, or super slow motion and seeing how things, just the mechanics of something moving super slow, or
Yeah.
a time lapse where you get to see an entire night sky, in 5 seconds. So you see the stars, the clouds, the different change of directions, the growth of clouds. I don't know. That stuff all really fascinates me.
Yeah, it's watching, I would say watching the tiny home adventure, you've got the entire element of the van and kind of that living, but then you're almost like an REI store that's come to life. You're like an REI store GI Joe. Like it's pretty incredible. It's and then you also have like this incredible just kind of nature photography moments that are just breathtaking. I
Thank
would
you.
say.
Yeah, there's definitely been a big progression from season one to season two. Season two was partially funded by GoPro, so a lot of that content was shot, 90% of it on GoPro alone.
Oh wow.
And we're ramping up to do a potential season three, and I won't have that tie, that commitment necessarily to GoPro. So there'll be a ton of GoPro footage,
Yeah.
but I'm really excited to do like the most visually stunning, adventure, story-driven lifestyle season three.
I wanted to take a quick break to talk about a product that is so perfect with this episode, and it's called the Spruce Pup Dog Bed. And if you are not familiar with this product, it is absolutely incredible. And I have to be honest, one of my favorite dog things that I've ever gotten. I find that when I am traveling with Pixie, it's always such a headache with the dog bed, but Pixie particularly gets nervous and needs that sense of security with a bed, so she never trusts the hotel bed that gets provided unless she's been there for a couple of days. Enter the Spruce Bed Dog Bed, and this bed is absolutely incredible because it's collapsible and it's easily transportable. And the other incredible thing is that it's completely washable, and because it zips on the sides to actually close and has handles, it you can put dog toys in there and some of the other essentials for your pet upon transporting them, and it just is such an incredible product that I would really recommend for anyone who regularly travels with their pet. The other thing I love to use a spruce bed for is that if I'm going to a brewery or bringing my dog to the office, it's such an easy thing that packs up really nicely, that is compact as well to bring with you. So I highly recommend to check out the Spruce Dog Bed. They're a great company, and it's aesthetically a good looking product. It's something I highly recommend for any traveling, adventuring, and busy pet parent that doesn't want to sacrifice style and living in an apartment. It's tough to find things that aren't super bulky. So I highly recommend this product. That's
So,
awesome. I'm
because
so excited to see that.
yeah, it's exciting. My skill set has just grown so much in the last couple of years as far as production value and capturing beautiful things. So it's like anything, you create something and then 2 weeks later it's obsolete because you've grown and you've learned and like, oh man, like when I first filmed this and released it, I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever create, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, that was so 2 weeks ago. This is the new. So I'm excited to continue to progress and grow, and storytelling and all that stuff is a craft, and I've been trying to hone that craft a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible that you're such a good storyteller, and then you can also do the sports aspect and kind of the adrenaline junkie to everything else. I mean, the ice climbing, I'm trying to think of. Okay, so the rope swing is like the scariest thing I've ever seen.
It's one of the wildest things I've ever done, for sure.
I was literally like, I had to walk away because I was like, oh God.
Yeah, that was a good one. I got to test that one out. I mean, people had built it before, but my friend Josh and I had rigged it up, and it took us about 7 hours to just make sure everything was,
Yeah,
perfect, redundant, and you could have thrown a bus off of that rigging, but to be the test dummy, if you will, was pretty intense and a pretty awesome feeling when I realized I wasn't, you know, gonna hit anything. So
got it. I was gonna
yeah.
say you weren't tethered to Earth, but no, that's incredible. So, do you mind? I know that there was quite a transformation that happened. Kind of life happened in between season one and season two, kind of tragically.
Sure.
Do you want to kind of at a very high level, because I also know this show is created for dog lovers, so a lot of people have probably seen your story on the Dodo.
hmm Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big part of my story, and it was, yeah, yeah. Um, so we had finished filming the last episode of the Tiny Home Adventure. Had an incredible 6 months on the road with no real incidents. It was a dream. Like Booter and I had just such an incredible experience, and being in adventure sports and driving on the road, like things can happen,
Yeah,
and we got through all 12 episodes without a single incident or yelp from Booter or me getting hurt or anything like that. And we had wrapped it up with this crazy, crazy rope swing on um, episode 12,
yep.
and it was, and this was the pilot season, so I had been investing all of my money. I invested everything that I had over the last year as far as my work and free time and money, and I was super excited to get home and finish editing the last episode in hopes that I could pitch this last episode to more brands or to a bigger
Got it.
audience, in hopes to sustain this thing that we had built that I thought was pretty cool. And so finished up this crazy rope swing in Moab, and my sister had spontaneously gotten married. Basically, her and her longtime college boyfriend had this opportunity to get married on a float in their hometown of Santa Barbara. So they got to throw this like crazy big wedding for super cheap.
Oh wow.
And so I had like 2 days to get from Moab to Santa Barbara, which is about a 12-hour drive. So I jetted over there, got to see her husband, meet her husband's family, get our family together, and it was great. It was honestly one of the first times, if not the first time I can remember, where everything was going well for my mom, my sister, and I. Like life was amazing. I had just completed this amazing, epic, um, pilot series, which was kind of this big risk in and of itself. And my sister had just gotten married. My mom was, super healthy and happy and dating somebody that was great. And but I wanted to get home to put as much effort as I could, as much editing time into the final episode, so that was something I could present to, future endeavors.
Yeah.
And I woke up early one morning and hit the road back to Park City and drove for 10, 11, 12 hours. And I was starting to just get super tired. And I really wanted to hit this bi-weekly deadline I had sort of set for every episode. That was another thing, is like I had filmed and edited everything myself in a 2-week time frame per episode. And that's one thing I wanted to
Wow.
show brands, is like, hey, here's the proof of concept. Like, I told you I was going to deliver this on these dates at this level, and
Yeah.
I exceeded those things, and I hit those deadlines, and I overproduced. And um anyways, I was exhausted, really ambitious to get home. And I was like, man, if I can drive another hour, that puts me within 2 hours of Park City. That gives me a full day of editing, back at a friend's house, because I was living out of my truck camper. That was my home. That was my life.
Got
I
it.
definitely didn't have money to rent a place. And that was one of the biggest mistakes of my entire life. Definitely a moment where my ambition and my drive um, got the best of me, and I should have listened to, my body, and not just tried to power through the situation. And I ended up falling asleep behind the wheel, and rear-ending an 18-wheeler. I kind of came to, and Booter was in the front seat next to me, and there was an 18-wheeler in the cab about 12 inches from my right shoulder, and I knew Booter
Oh,
was next to me. So I came to and kind of, you know, screamed no, and was in total disbelief. Like, my life went from the best it's ever been to being shattered. I mean,
yeah.
Booter was everything to me. Like, I would have done everything and anything to have kept him in my life. And so the eventually I hit this truck. Eventually the truck stopped. My legs were pinned. The whole thing was kind of collapsed in on
Oh
me
God.
and Booter, and it was on fire. And by the time we stopped, there were already people pulled over, and I was kind of yelling for help. And I think these people were just in total shock that someone was alive,
Oh
because this truck camper was absolutely totaled. And finally, after I think the shock wore off, they ran over and got the door open, and I tore apart the truck, and I got Booter out, and he was breathing.
yeah.
And people, they were like, sit down, sit down. I'm like, no, like, I need to get my dog out. And so I got him to the side of the road, and eventually paramedics showed up, and I was bleeding and, kind of messed up. But I was like, don't touch me, pardon my language.
Yeah.
Like,
No, don't worry.
please take care of my dog. Like, anything, like, I'm fine, I will survive. Like, none of this is critical, but like, save Booter.
Yeah.
And it was against their protocol, but we put him on oxygen. We called an emergency vet, but before the vet could show up, he passed away in my arms on the side of the road.
I'm so
And
sorry.
yeah, and I was just so freaking devastated. I mean, all of my stuff, my entire life was gone, but Booter was
Yeah.
like, he was my best friend. He was like a part of my soul. Like,
Yeah.
when people saw Booter and I together, people knew it was special. Like, I had friends that were dog owners that had amazing dogs and amazing relationships with their dogs, that would be like, man, like, what you and Booter have is just different. Like, he was the best.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't come from any kind of money. It's not like, I blew it. Like, I need to come home and live at home and buy me a plane, a flight ticket home or
Yeah.
something. Like,
Yeah. Of course.
I was on my own, and I was totally financially exhausted, and my home, my truck, my belongings, everything was, s- you know, done on the side of the road. My best friend,
Yeah.
gone. And the paramedics at the scene of the accident were like, "Hey, like, "Oh, I see you're a climber," because there was climbing gear splattered in the road.
Oh,
I'm like, all I want to do is just die right now. Like,
yeah.
leave me alone. Like, just leave me to die. Let me get hit by a car or something. Like, I was just devastated, like just totally over it. Like, there's no coming back from this, I thought. And I was sitting there with Booter sobbing for probably 45 minutes to an hour before the firefighters showed up, and this guy just kind of came over quietly and was like, "Hey man, I have dogs. I've lost dogs, and I totally get it. Like, I'm so sorry." And this guy Paul, he was a firefighter, and he was the only person on the scene of the accident that seemed to have any clue what I was going through, and was just quietly there for me. And I connected with him, and he really helped me through that first, you know, however, I was stuck at the scene of the accident for like 6 or 7 hours till I got a ride with the tow truck driver with the truck behind us into town where I could have a friend come pick me up because I refused care, and the cops at the scene of the accident were total assholes. Like, I was told that the cop was going to give me a ride into town, so I wanted to bring Booter with me
Yeah.
to bury him in a beautiful place, and the cops like, carrying him around is not going to bring him back. It's like, dude, what?
God, what
Like,
the oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
So,
That's so
anyways,
insensitive. That's
dude,
beyond insensitive.
the guy was not okay. Um, so anyways, I stayed in touch with the firefighter. I was like, hey, like, you helped me through this incredibly devastating first couple hours. Like, I would love to stay in touch with you. I'd love to show you what the relationship Booter and I had, and like the adventures we had gone on, and just like, he really really um, had helped me out. So
Totally.
got back to Park City, living on a friend's couch. I mean, just a total mess. Like, didn't have clothes, didn't have money, didn't have really anything. And I put together a U carrying because I didn't know what else to do. I don't have, like I said, family that could just throw me $1,000 to get back on my feet.
Yeah.
So and I donated to other athletes and other inspiring people that had, gone for this dream lifestyle, which doesn't typically pay well. Whether they're athletes or photographers or just people that needed some help. And I kind of always ask myself, like, I wonder, I'm making this big push, but I'm nowhere near the level of these incredible people that I envy and
Yeah.
admire, follow. I wonder if anyone would care if I were, in a compromised scenario when I would donate to them. Not that I ever hoped
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that would
yeah.
happen or anything, but you know, um, anyways, and I was hoping to raise 2 to 5 grand to get some clothes, get back on my feet, maybe find an apartment while I found another serving job or whatever I needed to do to piece my
Yeah.
shattered life back
Put
together. And
things together. Yeah.
I didn't know how much debt I was going to be in because the insurance I had on my truck wasn't super high level or anything, so I didn't know what the damage to the 18 wheeler was going to be. And the next thing was totally crazy. Over 48 hours, our story had spread, and people from all over the world, people that had been following the Tiny Home Adventure season one, which didn't really have a super huge audience. I think each episode had somewhere between 10 and 20,000 views. Um, but people from all over the world that had been following, and they started to donate, and the fundraiser raised like $25,000 in 48 hours,
Oh my gosh.
which was totally shocking. And I think the thing that surprised me most was the fact that our season had affected people in a positive emotional way. People were saying, like, hey, you and Booter had, inspired me to get out with my family or bring my dog with me on these more adventures, or just live a more passionate, happy life. And I thought I was just kind of like, season one it's mostly just sort of action sport adventure segment after action sport adventure segment with no real story to it, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah.
So the fact that what we were doing, which was really just chasing this like dream lifestyle I wanted to try and live for, you know, even if it was just for 6 months,
Yeah.
had so positively affected so many people. And, you know, even friends from home that I know grew up in a really tough situation and didn't have any money had donated and said, like, hey man, like you're like a hero to me, and like some of my
Ah,
best friends
that's
that
so sweet.
were were rooting for us to like, here, you know, just try and get back on your feet, do a season 2, because everyone kind of knew I was like pushing to do a season 2. And I was like, you know, after this car accident, it was like the last, you know, I dedicated the last year of my life to this, like in the last 10 years building this skill set to make this possible. Like I thought it was totally over, and after that it kind of got me fired up, although totally devastated and, you know, depressed and, you
Well,
know,
yeah,
missing.
your heart and soul was completely invested in that first season, it sounds like. Like everything, there was nothing left on the table. Like you gave it all. And
It was everything I had, emotionally, physically, and financially.
yeah.
And to have it all like in an instant, just gone, everything. And um yeah, it was super heavy, and I didn't think it was a uh, a reconcilable mistake, right? Like such a stupid mistake. Had I pulled over when I thought I was, you know, when I was tired, I should have. My life would be so much different. And you know, thankfully, things have come back around,
Yeah.
and if I could change it, I would definitely change it and pull over and sleep and keep Booter around.
Yeah, of course.
But it's like all tragedies in life, all things in life, you have to just kind of look for the good
Yeah,
at the
I
end of
agree.
at the end of the day, right? Like life sucks, life's unfair a lot of times, but if you can learn from those hardships and those mistakes, then they can become positive. So that's sort of what I've done is taken that mistake and tried to learn as much as I can from it, and I'm still learning from it, and I'm still trying to figure out, you know, why the hell I'm still alive. You know,
Yeah.
I rarely drive at night. I definitely don't drive tired. I'm never ever in a rush to get anywhere. I'm always just early and anticipate to be about a half an hour early to anywhere I need to be. That way it's, you know, there's no stress and I can focus on driving safely, and then also managing my own um, work ethic and ambitions in a healthier way. And it gets, you know, the reins get away from me every now and again, especially with this new project, this new vehicle we're building.
Yeah.
I definitely, there have been days and hours that are, you know, not driving but just overworking myself, where I'm like, okay, like I messed this up because I just am so uncontrollably driven at times that I need to like take a step back and take a breath and reconnect with, you know, be being
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah.
right? So I'm still learning and still growing.
I wanted to split this episode because I feel that there's a lot to Andrew's story. There's the sad part of losing his best friend and everything that he went through at the lowest point of his life and having so much that he had lost physically, emotionally, and everything. And what I think is so incredible about Andrew's story, and to speak a little bit about part 2 of this podcast that I'm sharing, telling Andrew's story, is that I think out of extreme loss comes some incredible opportunities. And when I first learned about Andrew's story, there was something that I so personally resonated with, that I think I haven't shared a ton, but my dad very suddenly passed away in November of 2016. And I had just started up my blog. I had been in the midst of coordinating and getting the word out. And I felt that, when that happened, my entire life kind of came to a screeching halt, and I had felt, I'll be honest, a little paralyzed. And what I love about what Andrew has done, and the second part of this story, and it's the second act, and I think that it's the resilience in the face of adversity, is picking yourself back up and determining what the next phase is going to be. And I hope that you continue to listen to the second part of this story, because what comes out of a horrible tragedy is something so incredible. I think you just have to see the light through the tunnel. And I so personally admire and commend Andrew for doing that. And I know that it's hard and everyone deals with loss, but I think it's how you cope and who you have around you that allows you to get through that. And I can honestly say that Pixie, my dog, was a huge driver of seeing that light through the tunnel personally. And I think that dogs are that for us. And even if we are experiencing a loss of a dog, I think that you have to cherish, hold on, and continue, because that is the path of our evolution. And yeah, so please tune in to the second part of this episode.